So if you look at what's happened since the president came, the number of Democrats in the House, and they had control of the House, has dropped from 256 to 187. And as you said a number of times, the highest percentage of Republicans since 1928. 1928, yeah. The number of Democrats in the Senate has gone from 58 to 46, and they were actually briefly over 60, including the independents who caucused with them. They had a filibuster-proof majority. The number of Democratic governors has gone from 29 to 16.
Well, you know, that is the most, I think, devastating, because that's going to impact redistricting as we move forward to 2020, which impacts the blue charts.
Well, it also,
in the House with the redistricting.
But to that point, they've lost over 900 seats in state legislatures. The percentage of state legislators who are Republican has gone from 44 to 58% over the last 2 years.
Which I believe, for me, Mark Halperin, is the most devastating number, because that's just among the grassroots. That's at the base, people you know, people you talk to, people who come knock on your door. And I'm curious. Does anybody have a theory around this table why it has been such a brutal 8 years for the Democrats? Why did they lose 9? I mean, because, you know, people say Putin and gerrymandering and this and that. That doesn't explain 900 state legislative seats lost. It doesn't explain the governorships. It doesn't explain the Senate losses. Why? Right. What has happened?
Well, let me just say, on the legislatures and tours, so much happens now at the state level, and more will happen with Republicans in control in Washington. And in terms of the governors, not just in terms of redistricting, but it means they have no bench. As Democrats look to rebuild, governors is the place parties normally look. They just don't have very many of them, and they're not a great voice.
And the governor's bench comes from the state legislatures who were wiped out. So, do you have a theory? Why did this happen?
I think the leading theory I would have, look, you're the incumbent party and you're doing big on things that are controversial. You're going to have some blowback. But I think the party got away from developing a national brand. They became an Obama party, not a Democratic party. And a lot of their issue positions are popular. They have things to talk about in terms of record, but they don't have a national message or a national operation to recruit candidates and to put the message forward.
Elise?
I think it's more about the economic numbers in the first presentation, how that didn't necessarily correlate with change in people's lives, in voters' lives, that they felt was real and impactful. And I think that the gain in how much people are earning on average, I think that it's been pretty stagnant since like 2001. And so that's what people really feel. Are they making more money? Are they living a better life? I just think that that was what really hit voters this year, that they were hearing about progress that they weren't actually
feeling. Why would they take that out on Democratic legislators across the country?
Well, I do think, you know, as I said, the overall numbers on earnings are okay, but when you parse it between people in this, you know, the famous Trump white working class voters, it's been pretty tough for them. And so I do think they have taken it out a bit on Democrats. But I also would say this: there is a feeling in the Democratic Party among the activists I talked to that the president did not do as much as he could or should have done to lead the party as well as to lead his White House.
Casey.
There's also, I mean, on that second slide that Steve showed where you talked about health care and also median income, there are a lot of middle-class voters that feel particularly left behind. There are a lot of low-income voters who really benefited from the health care law. A lot of those 20 million people are getting subsidies from the government to pay for their health insurance. But those stories about premium increases, those are middle-class people who are being forced to buy health insurance under President Obama's law, and they can't afford it because their health care premiums have gone way up, and they're not getting any help from the government. And I think those are a lot of the people who voiced their anger this year.
This is a conversation we need to keep having. And again, focusing on, again, all the levels, 900 state legislative seats, and figure out exactly what happened. That really is, that's the challenge for Democrats moving forward.
It's everything that everyone here has said. And it comes down to, what about me? The Democratic Party has forgotten about my life. You're more concerned about ideology than you are about my paycheck every Thursday afternoon that hasn't changed in 15 years.